All right, today is Saturday, June 17th. Recording this on Friday. Zach, breaking news, Ja Morant verdict finally came out with him. Only going to be suspended for 25 games next NBA season. Are you surprised about that? Do you think it'll be more?
I thought it would be a little bit more just because the height of the announcement of we're going to wait till after the finals. I don't really think with the 25 game suspension, it would have overshadowed what was going on during the finals. But I'm fine with, excuse me, I'm fine with it. I don't think that John Morant deserved a season long suspension or a 50 game suspension or something like that. I think this basically has to be his wake up call. If he doesn't get his act together after this, he may just be out of the NBA. But it was a toy gun. It wasn't like he was out shooting people or putting people in harm's way other than himself. I think 25 is appropriate. Like long suspensions are for things like we're on our test going in the stands or for drugs or something like that, not fooling around on Instagram. So if this were his first time, I don't even think it would be a 25 game suspension. But because he's a repeat offender, I think that's why he got what he got. I'm fine with it.
Yeah, I know people were saying, I think between last year and this year, he lost up to 50 million, maybe closer to $60 million just overall, just from all the games he was suspended from. Missed All American last year, would have been an All American player if he didn't get suspended as he did. A lot of people were saying his like advertisers though, like Nike, I know is one of the big advertisers. They might be in jeopardy of losing their deal with him. So that's another big financial pain that he might have to deal with going forward. But that's yet to come, and we'll see what happens over the summer, and especially as we get into the beginning of the season. Other NBA news: NBA is officially over. Miami Heat have lost to the Denver Nuggets on Monday night here last Monday night. Are we disappointed with Miami, Zach, or are we pretty? Are we just excited that they got to where they were to begin with?
No, I'm not disappointed in the Heat. I think this is what I picked Nuggets in five before the series started. I just thought this was a bad matchup for them. They were an 8 seed that was this close to losing to the Bulls and not making the playoffs to begin with. They got blown off the floor by the Hawks in the first play-in game, and they barely even made it. They beat the number one seed, the team that everybody thought was the favorite to win the title going into the postseason, and the Bucks. They beat the Knicks pretty easily, and then they withstood a 3-0 comeback from the Celtics. Like Jimmy Butler, I think we saw in these finals what he is. Jimmy Butler is a star. He is not a superstar, a guy that elevates his game, a guy that, catapults a team to a championship. Jimmy Butler can take you through the Eastern Conference, and he's done so twice, and he deserves a lot of credit for doing it. But if we're going to credit Jimmy Butler for being great during the Eastern Conference playoffs, then we also have to mention that he stunk in the finals. He averaged about 20 points a game, took some bad shots and key situations, and in a series that his team was clearly not the better team, he needed to elevate his game and have a couple of big games in order for the Heat to have a chance, and that just flat out did not happen. But you can't say you're disappointed to be an 8 seed to make it to the NBA Finals and lose in the finals. The Nuggets are the better team.
I think he just ran out of gas, Jimmy Butler. He was really the entire team. I think the team lived and died by his play, and it really showed in the last round of the playoffs. In the finals there. I just think he needs more help, and we're going to get into that a little bit later when we're talking about just like next year going forward for the Heat. But he needs more playmakers around him that can really help give him the points that he needs and the offensive help that he needs. I mean, defense, I think, was one of the things that the Miami Heat really put their head on this season and put their hat on. But their offense kind of stunk, and it's going to need a lot more help going into next season. I think they were 25th in offensive rating overall this last NBA season. I think 27th overall in 3-point shooting. I think also 25 and above in assists. Their offense is just an absolute shambles, and they're going to need to figure that out going into next year. But yeah, I mean, like you said, Zach, they made it to the second round of the play-in, if you want to call it that. Barely
No,
even won against the Bulls. Shouldn't even have been in the playoffs. So to get to where they are is just amazing. I mean, we talk about the Miami Panthers as well. Kind of just we'll just talk about basketball and hockey in the same realm here. I mean, Stanley Cup playoffs just ended on Tuesday night. Miami Panthers were another team that barely even made the playoffs, but they ended up going to the finals as well. So I think if you're a Miami fan, you definitely should not be disappointed. It's never fun to lose in the finals, but just to even get there in the first place when you shouldn't even have been there is something pretty amazing. But let's talk about Jokic and the Denver Nuggets. Great interview with Josh Dover coming up in a little bit. We'll talk to him. He's fresh off the parade, going to give us his insight about how the parade was and just overall the Nuggets season they had this year. But let's talk about Jokic, Zach. How many more titles do you think Denver can get with this group of players they have?
Oh, I think they can do. I don't know if they can do what Golden State did because I don't think the Nuggets are adding Kevin Durant or anything similar to Kevin Durant. But there's no question that over the next 5 years, if you told me they won another 2 championships, I wouldn't be all that surprised. Jamal Murray's one of the best point guards in the league. Aaron Gordon's still relatively young. Michael Porter Jr. is only 24. Jokic is still relatively young, and he's one of the most dominant players in recent NBA history. And what he's done this postseason was phenomenal. First player to ever lead all players in points, rebounds, and assists throughout an entire playoffs. That surprised me a little bit, but this team can absolutely win a couple more titles. I don't know if they're going to be a dynasty because I think the NBA has more parity than it had in the 2000s, 2010s when it was the Lakers or the Warriors or especially the 90s with the Bulls. But I think the Nuggets can win another 2-3 championships over the next 10 years, I'd say.
I would even say over the next 5 years, they have a chance to win 2 more. I mean, average age of the starting lineup is 27. Jokic is 28, Murray 26, Michael Porter Jr. only 24, Aaron Gordon 27, Caldwell Pope 30, a little bit more up there, but still starting lineup only 27 years old. Do you think Jokic? Do you think? I mean, we all know Jokic's personality and how he thinks about the game, but do you think this was a hurdle for Jokic to get over? And do you think now that he's over this hurdle that he might even be better next year?
I don't think he looks at it that way. He's not a guy that obsesses over basketball the way that some players did. So I don't think he necessarily thinks of this as a hurdle. I don't think this is going to change the way he plays. I don't think his personality is going to be any different than it was before these playoffs. So I don't really look at it that way. Now, maybe the floodgates open up because the rest of his team plays with more confidence, but I don't really think this is going to change a whole lot about Jokic himself.
Yeah, never count out the fat boys, he says, right?
That's right.
And he was drafted during a Taco Bell commercial. I don't know if
Oh,
you
yeah.
actually saw.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was because they still do this, but second round they don't really show the picks
Right.
when they actually make the selections on TV. And he was, on the ticker at the bottom
Yep.
and 41 overall, and he actually was shown during a chimichanga commercial for Taco Bell or something. It was really really funny, but just kind of shows you that every once in a while you can get a gem out of the second round, and that's always
That's
what
right.
the front office is hoping they can do. But let's talk about parity in the NBA now. Over the last 5 years, 5 different teams have won the NBA championship. Let's just start with this, Zach. Is this good for the league, or do you kind of miss the era of the super team?
I think it's good for the league as far as overall everybody thinks they've got a chance to win a championship as opposed to going into an NBA season where realistically 5 teams had an opportunity to win a title. And I think it's a little better when the league's spread out as far as the super teams are concerned, that there aren't any super teams, that the best players have their squads or whatnot. But I think you saw the NBA Finals ratings. They were not good. And that probably has something to do with no LeBron, no Steph, no Kevin Durant. Like, there's certain players that we all associate as big time. And as great as Nikola Jokic is, part of that is he's not an American player. So people don't necessarily think of that in the same breath. But I think you'd like to have a villain just because every sport needs a villain, because everybody watches one way or another. They watch to root for them or against them, but either way, they don't measure the metrics by hate watching. They just measure by are you watching. So I think for competitive balance, it's good for the league. From a ratings perspective, from a star perspective, I'm not sure that it necessarily is.
Yeah, and I was actually going to ask you too, what do you think the actual league wants more? And I think you just answered that question as well. I think they would want superstars in the league and more of the super teams because it brings up the ratings, and we definitely saw it this year in the NBA finals. This last week, these last couple of weeks. But yeah, I agree. I miss the super teams. I kind of like the idea of any team having a chance. I mean, this year it was amazing just to see an 8 seed in the Heat go as far as they did. But I agree, missed the super teams. Let's go back to the Heat though. Circle back to that 8 seed that made it all the way to the finals this year. Well, I mean, what do the Heat have to do next year? I mean, they're kind of in a weird position, right, where they they have Jimmy Butler, who's definitely still a star in the league, but they also kind of are their era of dominance under Spoelstra might be coming to an end too. So where do you think they go this year or next year?
Yeah, their cap situation's not particularly great right now, and especially with the new salary cap structures, they don't want to go overboard. But they've got big contracts. They got like a $90 million deal with Duncan Robinson, which obviously has not necessarily worked. They're going to have to pay Bam eventually, but the move to make right now is if Damian Lillard is interested, get him. Damian Lillard has showed that Miami is probably his first choice if he were to leave Portland, and when do you decide that we need to go all in? Because how many more years do you have left of Jimmy Butler being at this level? And the way that this postseason has turned out, you need another guy, or you need maybe even a number one guy. Damian Lillard can be a number one guy on a championship team. And so if you're the Miami Heat, if Portland's interested in trading Dame, which nobody knows if they are, then I would look into going out and getting him. Otherwise, you're going to have to go out and get some shooting because Max Strus, Gabe Vincent's good, but are those guys untradeable? No, I don't think so. I think they need shooting, and they need a guy that has that swagger about him. Damian Lillard would fit both of those.
Yeah, I mentioned it earlier, just their offensive production this last season. They were hard to watch some nights. They really were. They're always known for their defense and grit, but unfortunately, grit doesn't really win championships, despite what the Disney movies will tell you.
No,
I would love to see Lillard go to Miami. I think they just need that extra player down there, that extra help on offense, and that extra star alongside Jimmy to really help with that offensive production. He said earlier in the week, I think like a week or two ago, that he was going to go to the team that lost in the finals, and he's actually very good friends with Adebayo too, Damian Lillard.
yep.
So definitely could be a good landing spot for him, and I'd love to see it. I know Bradley Beal was also another name thrown into the mix as someone that might come to Miami. Uh, I mean, who do they give up though for the Heat? Right? They really can't, if they can't deplete their bench to the point where it's only Beal and Butler or Lillard and Butler. They really just can't do that. They're going to need to have a deeper bench in order to keep up that offensive production when they're not in the field, right?
They are, but to me, the only guys that I would deem as untradeable are Butler and Bam. Outside of that, everybody else is available.
Yeah, and like I said, we have Josh Dover on coming up. Great interview with him. We talk about the Heat a little bit, just kind of what went wrong for them in the finals, and he kind of gives his input into what the Heat should do next year as well. But yeah, like I said, they're in a kind of a weird place right now. They're kind of stuck in this decision to either blow up the team or make a run for it next year. They made the Eastern Conference Finals 3 of the last 4 years, and 2 of those 3 years they actually made. Well, I'm sorry, they made the Eastern Conference. Yeah, Eastern Conference Finals. Excuse me, 3 of the last 4 years, and then 2 of those 3 years they made the finals.
Yeah.
28 playoff wins in the Butler Adebayo Spoelstra era. I mean, like I said, these are all great, but is this era coming to an end, and do they have to kind of blow it all up now and kind of rethink things, or do they really try to go for that playoff run next year and keep it going? I mean, Butler's 34. He's definitely not the youngest anymore. Still can produce, obviously, but we saw it in these playoffs that he will burn out, and by the finals, he can't do it all. That he will need help around him. But yeah, he'd have 90 million tied up in cap next year between Lowry, Robinson, Hero, Gabe Martin, and Oladipo. Zach, I mean, what do you think? Do you think they really should run it back next year then?
Yeah, I mean, you just made the NBA Finals. I'm not a guy that, if I'm that close to winning a championship, I'm retooling. I'm not rebuilding. Once I know that my window is over, then you start thinking about rebuilding. I don't think the Heat's window is necessarily over just yet. I don't think Jimmy Butler is done. I think Bam showed a lot in the finals. We were kind of critical of his play during the playoffs, and Bam really showed out in the finals, averaged 20 and 10, which few guys do. So I think you keep going. I think if you go out and get a guy like Lillard, you can get Bradley Beal. I think you've got to be aggressive and go get those guys. You're that close to winning a title. You don't blow it up.
Hockey news. Another finals over, officially in baseball season now. Vegas has won over the Miami Panthers, or Florida Panthers, excuse me. Tuesday night, like I said, hockey officially over, basketball officially over. We are in the dog days of summer with baseball now. Let's talk about the game though, or even the series, the Stanley Cup Finals. Zach? What do you think Vegas did so well? I mean, they didn't just beat the Panthers in their games; they really beat them. I mean, last game in particular, 9-3 victory on Tuesday night. Uh, Went off into the sunset in just dynamic fashion. I mean, what did Vegas do so well?
What didn't they do well? I mean, they controlled the puck beautifully. They were able to get constant shots on goal. They put constant pressure on Sergei Bobrovsky, who had a terrific postseason leading up to this. And it wasn't just one guy that dominated. They really spread it around really well. And when you score 9 goals in a cup clinching game, that is a remarkable feat. And throughout the playoffs, this team was averaging 4 goals per game. I mean, they weren't playing a lot of 1-0, 2-1 kind of games. They were getting out on the run. They were controlling the pace of the game. They were forechecking well, and that's why this team was able to go through Edmonton. And I think that ended up probably being the Stanley Cup once the Bruins ended up losing in the first round. I think whoever won Vegas versus Edmonton was going to win the title, and Vegas ultimately proved that out. And this is the first playoff series they actually clinched at home. They clinched their first 3 on the road, but they showed the ability to finish it off at home in Game 5, and they were the better team. They were the best team throughout the playoffs, and Foley, the owner of the team, he said playoffs in 3, cup in 6. Well, they were a year ahead of schedule. They won it in 5.
Fastest expansion team in NHL history to win the Stanley Cup. That's not a surprise. Only took them 6 years. Started in 2017. Jonathan Manchester won the Conn Smythe Trophy. Definitely deserved it. He had 25 points in the playoffs, 13 goals, 12 assists. But let me ask you this. I mean, was it really Vegas's dominance, or did Bobrovsky just kind of crumble in the
No, I think
finals?
Vegas just dominated. I think Bobrovsky had a great postseason. He didn't have a great Stanley Cup, but it's hard to be a great goalie when you're getting constant shots on goal when your defense isn't necessarily holding up all that well. You're not keeping them out of the blue ice, and it's just you can't consistently let guys go right by you and expect in a one-on-one to be able to stop every puck. So I think the Florida defense let him down more than Bobrovsky let them down.
Yeah, 134 shots in the 5 games of the Stanley Cup Finals. 21 goals, obviously, that Vegas scored out of those 134 shots. Like you said, can't stop all of them. And when you're just getting barraged constantly, it's what can you really expect? But you also mentioned he played amazing in the playoffs. 11-2. Only allowed 2.2 goals a game in the playoffs. Pretty amazing. He really did play well. And obviously, Bobrovsky is the goalie next year for the Panthers, right? Starts and
Right.
plays, and we'll see what he can do. Besides that, the Panthers lose their window. I kind of forgot about this, but I think a lot of other people do. They won the President's Trophy in 2022.
Yeah.
So, I mean, they definitely have a good team. Had a playoff run back in 2022 as well. What do you think? I mean, did Panthers lose this window, or do you think they're going to come back next year and the years after that?
No, they're still going to be around. In hockey, it's harder to lose a window than it is in just about every other sport because you can be an 8 seed in hockey, and we've seen the LA Kings as an 8 seed win a title in 2012. Now Florida just made it to the Stanley Cup Finals. So, no, I don't think their window's gone. They just won the President's Cup last year. They made the Cup Final this year. They're probably not going to lose a whole lot of guys throughout this offseason. So, yeah, I think they're going to be around next year. They're going to make the playoffs, and they will have an opportunity to make another run. I don't know if they'll catch fire like they did in this postseason after they got through Boston, but yeah, their window's not done.
Just like the Heat, very scrappy team, explosive, very unlike the Heat. Great offense, fourth highest points total in the regular season, and this year, and just really are really proficient in scoring, and just unlike the Heat again, fun to watch on offense. Really, really are. Uh, let's do our way too early predictions for next season's NBA Finals and Stanley Cup Finals. I think the Bucks are going to come back personally for basketball. I still think Giannis is one of, if not the best players in the league. They have the third best odds according to Caesars at plus 700, only under the Nuggets at plus 450 and the Celtics at plus 550. NHL, always hard to guess with the NHL. You never really know, just kind of going off of what we were just saying. I mean, this last preseason going into this NHL year, Vegas's odds were 1,500, only slightly above the Flames and Penguins, who didn't even make the playoffs.
Right.
So it's
Yeah.
hard to guess. But just real quick, what are your predictions here for
I'm gonna
next
go
year?
with you on. I'm gonna go with you on the Bucks. I think Giannis, after the way that this year ended, I think he's gonna use his post game comments. I think he's gonna use everybody's reaction to it as fuel. He's still, to me, the best player in the league. It's him and Jokic are 1A, 1B. So I think right now I would probably say Bucks Nuggets in the finals, and then the Stanley Cup. You know, it's got to happen one of these years for Edmonton, doesn't it? So I'm gonna take the Oilers.
Yeah. I mean, McDavid is still by many probably the best player in the league. One of the
Yeah.
best players the NHL might have ever seen, actually. I mean, he's on his way to be one of the best players ever. So I want to see McDavid win one personally, and I really hope they can. I had Edmonton winning it all this year going into the playoffs, and I would love to see it. Like, I really, really would love to see it. We'll go to golf now. PGA Championship just started up yesterday,
US Open.
Thursday. Thank you. U.S. Open just started up yesterday. Going on now as we speak. Ricky Fowler, historic day, scoring 8 under on a course that usually does not score very low. So
Yeah, Xander Schauffele did the same thing.
Yeah, and I wanted to talk. I mean, it's funny because no one's really talking about Schauffele. I think all the pictures, all the thumbnails on social media, all the postings, it all shows Ricky Fowler's face. Not many people are realizing that Schauffele did the same exact thing, is also breaking the course record and scoring 8 under. I was going to ask you, a PGA golfer won the Masters.
Yeah.
And then the PGA Championship, a live golfer won. So who do you think breaks this tiebreaker this weekend? PGA golfer or live golfer, and goes 2-1 on the majors this year?
Right now, I would say a PGA golfer, because the live guys are not necessarily doing all that well. Brooks is kind of struggling. He's won over throughout the tournament. He's not off to a great start today. Phil Mickelson's played pretty well. Dustin Johnson had a great first round, but then he quadruple bogeyed, I believe, his second hole. So he's about out of contention at this point, unless he has a big round Saturday or Sunday. But I'm going to say, you look at the leaderboard right now, it's Ricky Fowler, Xander Schauffele, Rory McIlroy, Tony Finau, some of the biggest names on the PGA Tour. So I think a PGA guy is more likely to win the U.S. Open.
Yeah, I was going to say, I mean, I know it's changed a little bit now that we're in the Friday and play is going on, obviously. But at the end of the day on Thursday, 20 of the top golfers, only 3 of them were live players.
Yeah.
Out of those golfers, only really one true contender, Dustin Johnson, was at -6. Yep. I believe right now, I don't know what he's at right this second, but I think even he went, he's at -2 right now.
Yeah.
After Friday.
Yep.
So no, he's, definitely PGA is going to walk away with this one. Bryson was at -3 after yesterday. He hasn't actually teed off yet. So, Jacqueline Newman, excuse me, -1. He's even +1 for the day. PJ definitely going to walk away with this one. But out of who's in the current leaderboard heading into Friday here, Zach, who do you have winning this in general, coming away with the win?
It's hard to say right now. I'm leaning a little more towards Xander Schauffele because it seems like he's due to win one of these. He's won a gold medal. He's won other tournaments, and he's been a consistent top 10 player. And his game's kind of very good all around. He's a great wedge player. He's pretty good putter, drives the ball well. It just seems like he's too good to not win a major. So I feel like this might be his opportunity. Rory McIlroy is also in contention. He's only 4 back, had a very good day one. So I'm going to lean toward Xander Schauffele. I'm going to make that my pick right now. But, of course, this changes dramatically over a 4-day span. Most guys that lead after the first round don't end up winning these majors, but they're so far ahead of just about everybody else. Wyndham Clark's actually leading the tournament right now, but he's already he's 9 holes through his round. So I'll go with Xander Schauffele.
Yeah, we talk about how historically, and we'll get to this in a second, how low scoring the PG or the U.S. Open usually is. Uh, as you kind of just said, Zach, Wyndham Clark right now is winning at -9. Ricky Fowler and Schauffele, as we talked about earlier, they're at -8. They actually haven't teed off yet. They don't tee off for another like 3 hours. But after the -8 with Schauffele and Fowler, the next is Andrew Putnam and Zam Bennett and Tony Finau, Brian Harmon. Rory is actually at -4 too. But
Yep.
we talk about just how hard it is to score low in the U.S. Open. I think it's going to be really hard to make up 4 strokes, even over a course of 2 days on this golf course, depending on what happens today. But it's a very, very good chance that one of these 3 winners will be Wyndham Clark, Ricky Fowler, or Xander Schauffele. And I would love to see Ricky Fowler personally come away with a win. I love Ricky Fowler. I think he's due for a redemption, and I know a lot of golf fans in general would love to see him come too. But let's just before we move on, any sleeper pick out of these players that maybe like -4, -3. I mean, once you get to -2, that's kind of a pipe dream to come back. But
Mm-hmm.
out of any of these players that are kind of in the mix, have to do some work over the next 2 days. But who do you have just as a sleeper pick that might have a chance to come back here?
I'm gonna go with the live guy. Actually, I'm gonna go with Bryson DeChambeau. He's 3 under par. He's a U.S. Open champion. He's got the he's one of the best drivers of the ball on the tour. Of course, he drives it further than just about everybody else. But his short game's starting to come along. His putting's come along well. Played very well at the PGA Championship just a couple of weeks ago. I think he's got an opportunity to make a push and get up there this week. He was very in control with his round yesterday. And of all the guys that are that far back, usually I go to guys that have a discernible skill, and I go to guys that have had previous experience of coming from behind and winning majors. Bryson DeChambeau fits both of those bills.
All right, yeah, that's good. I think Rory McIlroy would be an awesome pick if he could come back. Obviously, with all the drama that happened over the last couple of weeks, probably one of the biggest losers in the PGA Live merger. So, I think besides Ricky Fowler, I think McIlroy would be one of the perennial favorites for the golf fans to love to see come away with the win this weekend. But like I said, -4 back right now, going to be really hard to make up that 5-stroke lead that Wyndham has as they play on Friday here. But let's just finish up the U.S. Open right now. I know we talked about it earlier and we alluded to it earlier, but U.S. Open always notorious for scoring really low. Do you like this, Zach? Do you think golf fans like this? And do you think it's even good for golf that U.S. Open is so notoriously like low scoring and people have struggled putting up low numbers here?
I think it's different. I think that's what's intriguing. People like things that are different. They don't want the same thing every single tournament. So I think typically they like seeing golfers have a struggle. I think there's a difference between having a struggle versus guys shooting 5 or 6 over par, as we've seen at U.S. Opens in the past. That's just nobody likes to watch bad golf. But I'm not sure that people necessarily want to see them treat this course like it's the Canadian Open and guys are going 15, 16 under par either. So I think you'd like to have a nice little balance there. The U.S. Open is the toughest test for any golfer typically every single year. There's a reason for that. I'm not sure that this year that is necessarily the case. So I'm going to be intrigued to see how golf fans view. The first day there was, okay, well, this course is really easy. What's going on? This isn't a U.S. Open. We'll see if it tightens up or if it firms up over the next couple of days. I'm guessing the USGA will figure out a way to make it tougher. I think there's a balance between, you don't, like I said, you don't want it to be super low, but you also don't want it to be like a bastardization of the game where guys are 5 or 6 over par. And it's just like, okay, who sucks the least?
My problem with it is that, and I alluded to it earlier, is it makes comebacks harder. So even now as we enter Friday, with people knowing how low scoring U.S. Open usually is, it really is, if it continues that way, if history repeats itself, it really is only a 3-man race even right now, just on even Friday. I mean, the guys that are -4, -3 can definitely have a big day today and make it interesting going into the weekend. But if they don't, and especially if Wyndham Clark, Ricky Fowler, Xander Schauffele, if they have a good day today as well, and don't allow anyone to really tighten that lead, it's going to be a three-man race entering Saturday, and that's not really fun to watch. I think a lot of people like to have at least 7, 8 people in the mix going into Sunday, and that's my problem with it. I think lower scoring, it definitely, if someone breaks out the first couple of days, it's gonna kind of be a snooze fest, and you know, pretty predictable of who's going to end up winning on Sunday. What else? So MLB. Well, let's stick with NFL first. Stephon Diggs had some drama this week. Didn't show up to training camp, but then did show up to training camp at the same time. I think the the agent said he was there, but he wasn't there. I guess he showed up and then left or whatever. But either way, he's there now. Should he be upset with his contract, Zach? Do you agree what he's doing, and do you think it's going to actually end up working for him to get a better deal that he wants?
I think these things typically resolve themselves. I think eventually the Bills are going to come to an agreement with him. He's one of the best receivers in the game. The stats that Josh Allen had before Stephon Diggs got there and after he's got there are just incredibly stark. So when you have a top flight talent like Stephon Diggs, you're going to come to the bargaining table and they're going to figure out a way to get him there. I don't have a problem with him holding out, wanting more money. This is something that receivers and NFL players in general just do all the time. I think it's much ado about nothing. It's just the middle of June. Like, if something happens in late August and we're getting close to the season and there's still a disagreement, then it's a big deal. But 2 months out, I don't really think it matters.
4-year, $96 million extension last season with Buffalo. Definitely one of the best receivers in the league, and like I said, I hope both sides can find a balance, and Buffalo can come back resilient and strong like they were last year. Barkley also unhappy about his contract.
Yep.
I think New York is concerned with his longevity. I think running backs, it's hard to get even more than 2 good years out of them anymore. I think that's why teams are really afraid to pay running backs. Do you agree with this, Zach? I mean, should they get paid more? I think the running game has actually really been more noticeable over the years, and actually has been coming back into the offensive scheme. So what do you think, Zach? Do you think he should be unhappy, or do you think he still is?
He should be. I mean, he's just a couple years into his career. We see that he's the driving force of this Giants offense. When Saquon Barkley's been healthy, the Giants have been a top 15 offense. We saw last year with him and Daniel Jones, they were explosive. And when he's missed games, the Giants offense has been putrid. And the running back position is the only position that they don't pay you based on what you've accomplished. They pay you based on, we think that you're probably going to be done. I mean, you look at the top 6 rushers last year, those guys are either tendered as players or they've been having to sign franchise tags. Josh Jacobs last year led the league in rushing. He had to sign a franchise tag because the Raiders wouldn't give him a long-term deal. Dalvin Cook was the 6th leading rusher in the NFL last year, and he got cut because of his age. And it seems to be the only position that's the case. And I know there's more of a drop-off between running backs as far as the age of 25 to 27 than any other position. But it seems like sometimes the owners are going the complete opposite way as far as they're not giving running backs enough credit for being as good as they are, and they probably should be paid a little bit higher salary-wise than what they've been. And instead of just projecting that they're going to drop off, let's wait and see if they actually do drop off, and then we'll go from there.
Do you think there's this feeling in the front office with NFL teams that they're kind of like replaceable almost? That's kind of the feeling I get with head coaches and the owners is these running backs. Yeah, they might get their hands on a really good one at first, but do you think there's like this sense that as long as you're big and you're fast, you can be good as a running back, and like anyone's kind of replaceable in that position? As kind of a not the same maybe for like wide receiver and especially for quarterback, but I think a lot of front office staff and coaching staffs, they look at running backs too much as like replaceable and kind of like anyone can do the job type of deal, and that's the reason for the contract issues they have. Do you kind of agree with that, or am I
A little
way
bit,
off?
yeah, because with running backs, you can kind of split carries, and we've seen the numbers over the last 15 Super Bowl champions. Like, how many of them have had high priority paid running backs? Not a lot. I mean, you look at the Chiefs, Isaiah Pacheco and Jerick McKinnon were the running backs last year. You just need guys that'll get the job done. Now, if you can have a Saquon Barkley that leads your offense, then you pay him accordingly because he is the Giants offense, much in the way that Patrick Mahomes is the Chiefs offense. So I think every situation is different, but I do think that most coaches would prefer to have an elite quarterback and have two or three good running backs as opposed to having a dominant number one running back. Because when's the last time that a number one running back was really the driving force of a Super Bowl contender on a regular basis? With Emmitt Smith, I guess, from the Cowboys in the 90s, when he was
Hmm.
the leading weapon more so than Troy Aikman and Michael Irvin were. But since that time, or I guess Terrell Davis for the Broncos in the late 90s with John Elway. But it's very rare that a team is a Super Bowl contender on the back of a running back. So I get their thought process, but I think you have to place value for the running back position on certain teams. Like I think Christian McCaffrey with the 49ers, Saquon Barkley with the Giants. You've got to, if you don't have an elite quarterback, then you need to pay your elite running back as the number one weapon of your offense because he probably is.
Miami's starting to run the ball a lot more. Typically, over the last couple of years, they're definitely getting, McDaniels is liking the running game, putting that more into his scheme as well. Yeah, but we'll see. Still early. Obviously, it's only June in the NFL offseason here. 3 more months until we actually officially have kickoff into the season, and we all can't wait for that. Finish up MLB news. A's continue to be a mess. Nevada Governor Joe Lombardo officially signing a bill to have basically taxpayer money pay for about 25%, close to 25% of the $1.5 billion stadium to be built in Las Vegas. Uh, A's just had a reverse protest this last week. 28 people in attendance showed up, season high for the A's, probably the highest it's been in a long time. Just give me your take on this A situation, Zach. I mean, are you okay with them going to Vegas? I mean, are you? I mean, I don't think anyone's okay with them going to Vegas, but is this pretty much a done deal at this point? They're leaving Oakland.
Yeah, it seems like a done deal, and it's despicable for John Fisher to be doing what he's doing. And for Rob Manfred to say yesterday when Oakland had the reverse protest and they had 28,000 people show up at the game the other day and showed that the fans aren't the problem. And Oakland A's fans have been very good fans for a long time. I mean, you talk about they had a dynasty run in the 70s, they had a great run in the late 80s, early 90s, and then even in the 2000s with the Moneyball era. They consistently sold out the stadium, and it's not as though the fan base is the problem. When you don't spend money, when you are playing in a cavern in a stadium that is older than dirt and you don't seem to have much interest in trying to compete, of course the fan base is going to be turned off. I don't care who it is. So I don't think it's the Oakland A's fans that are the problem. And for Rob Manfred to say, oh, well, they almost had an average game attendance last night, basically denouncing or demeaning the Oakland A's fans' protest, I thought was just awful. And it's just very on brand for Rob Manfred at this point. And so, no, I think this is a done deal. I think it's a farce. I think it's terrible that the A's are going to move because the Oakland A's are associated as one of the best franchises in baseball. It's hard to think of the A's anywhere else, even though I know they moved a couple of times before that.
Yeah.
But they've been in Oakland since the 60s. And with them losing the Raiders and then the Warriors going to San Francisco, Oakland has no professional sports teams left. And for them to just decide, oh, we're going to abandon ship and we're not even going to try, like, we're just going to suck for a bunch of years. We're going to hope that the fan apathy is what drives us out so we can use that as an excuse when it's just not correct. I think too many owners have this mentality, and I think it's just wrong.
Yeah, over the last 5 years, Oakland has lost all their pro sports teams. The A's, Warriors, Raiders, all moved on from the city. I think this is pretty much a done deal at this point. Rob Manfred pretty much waived the $1 billion relocation fee for the Oakland A's. Like I said, they're going to start making ground on the new stadium as soon as it gets officially approved. They want it to be done by 2028. Going to be the smallest stadium in the MLB with only like 30,000 or so. But yeah, I mean, we'll see from there. We'll see how it goes. Vegas continues to keep growing as a sports city while Oakland is losing all their sports. It's they're taking all the sports away from Oakland and they're moving a little bit east, not the westward expansion that we're used to seeing. But either way, we'll head to some NBA news with Josh Dover, radio personality for the Denver area, just coming off the parade that happened a couple days ago in Denver there. We're going to hear his thoughts on everything that happened there. He's going to confirm how crazy it all seemed on social media, the just amazing Nuggets season this year that they had, and then, of course, where they're going next season in the offseason and beyond. So, yeah, without further ado, we'll head over to Denver and talk some Nuggets basketball with Josh Dover. Okay, we now head to the current home of the Larry O'Brien Trophy, the Mile High City, and welcome on Josh Dover, host of Columbus, Hastings, and Dover on Altitude 92.5 FM, weekdays noon to 3 Mountain Time. Josh, you were at the parade yesterday. We saw Instagram reels, Twitter recaps. Social media was blowing up. Looked like a fun time. Was it as fun as it seemed? And was Michael Malone the drunkest out there?
Oh yeah, it was definitely as fun as it looked, as fun as it sounded. Tons of fun. Got to see a whole bunch of listeners of the show, the Altitude team, all that, getting to be there, getting to broadcast for the second year in a row. I got to do it for the Avs last year too. Same sort of setup. So it was awesome. And yeah, Coach Malone, he definitely had the most. My boy Scotty, who I do the radio show with, he's been a part of the Nuggets since the early '90s, first as a player, then as a broadcaster. I got to ride on the fire truck with him. And he said before they even climbed the ladder to get up on that thing, they were passing out beers and Coach was chugging some champagne. So he got it going early.
How about Nikola Jokic? You know, he was just talking about, oh, I wanted to go home and everything. Seemed like he was totally fine. Like one of those days where, oh, I'm staying in tonight. And then you go out with your boys and you're like, oh, thank God I decided to go out. That looked like Jokic.
Yeah, just one tonight, boys, right? That it's 4 a.m. and you're looking for a burrito joint. Yeah, that's exactly what it was. I thought he'd do the parade, have a great time, and then get on the first international flight to Sombor that he could get on. Did find out he landed in Belgrade this morning, so he's there, but a little bit more of a delay. So yeah, he not only enjoyed the effing parade, as he let us all know, they got him. I think it was Elway's or a steakhouse out here is where the team went kind of in between. And then obviously a PJ with old Josh Kroenke to Vegas and spent the night walking around a club with his shirt unbuttoned, having the time of his life. So yeah, he lived it up for sure.
Was this pretty comparable to last year with the Avs, or was it, was it bigger, or how? Like, I can only imagine this is such a big deal for the city of Denver. I mean, being the first NBA Finals victory.
It was. I mean, as far as people go, it felt like there were more people there, but probably not by a ton. But I think the city reported around 750,000. I thought it was 700 for the Avs. I can't remember off the top of my head. But I mean, the support was certainly there. It was a huge party, just a huge celebration. I will say that the big difference, like the ceremony of the guys, it was like 27 minutes long. The Avalanche players, I mean, they were ready to talk. They were ready to tell everybody how they were feeling, what the day was. So they went, close to an hour, 45 minutes, maybe an hour, something along those lines. So I think the Nuggets players kind of wanted to be a part of the parade and then go do their own thing amongst, it's a basketball team. So it's, even with coaches, like 40 dudes, and it's a pretty tight-knit little circle. So I think they wanted to end that part of it and go to their private parties.
Have the Nuggets locked themselves in as the number 2 team in Denver behind the Broncos are probably always going to be the number 1 team in the city, but if they pass the Avalanche or because of their recent success, are they now locked in as a solid number 2?
I mean, right now, yeah, but if you would have asked me this June of 22, it would have been the Avs, right? Pecking order just because of championship and most recency. So right now, for sure. And like you guys were just talking about, it is a little different. The vibe in the city is a little different because it was one. It's been 47 years. We've had guys on my show this week like Ralph Simpson. That dude was a Denver Rocket, then a Denver Nugget, and he still calls Denver home. And Alex English has been at some finals games. David Thompson was there. Dan Issel was there. Those guys that represented this team long before they were in this championship window. It's kind of come full circle for them. So right now, I think it's Broncos because you're right. It's still Broncos. Although Sean Payton couldn't ask for a better time to do a mini camp because none of us gave a damn about what was going on with the Broncos the last couple of weeks. But yeah, it's still Broncos as like a 1. I'm going to give Nuggets the 1A like right now because we're fresh off of a chip. And then the Avalanche. And heck, it's a beautiful time to be a Denver sports fan because most of the betting sites right now have the Nuggets and Avs favored in their respective sports to do this dang thing again. So we'll see what that pecking order continues to look like, especially if Russ falls on his face like he did last year.
Yeah, sidebar. I work at ESPN Louisville with Dan Issel. Great guy.
Oh, awesome. Heck yeah. All right. He is a great guy. Great dude.
Nuggets 550 to win next year, and then Avs plus 800 to win. If you parlay them, it's plus 5300, I think it is. So that's pretty good odds
Dang.
for you guys. Yeah, I mean, definitely good chance. One of the teams next year comes away with it again. Is that pretty much the is that the idea in Denver right now? Like, you guys are definitely going to run it back next year, and no one else is going to be able to, kind of compete against them again like they were this year.
I mean, the Lakers are going to get better. They're the Lakers. They're going to throw money at the problem, and that usually solves stuff. So they're landing Kyrie, Chris Paul, maybe both of those dudes. Who knows what that looks like? And then Phoenix is going to get better. I think even without Chris Paul, I kept saying this on my show. They're going to play such a different style and pace of basketball. They're going to be better without Chris Paul. And I know the Nuggets still took care of business, but those 2 games in Phoenix, it's going to be more what the Suns look like next year than they just did in that quick little 6-game series. So I think Los Angeles has got a bunch of money to throw at a problem, and they will. I think the Phoenix Suns are going to be a real deal here over the next 2-3 years if Kevin can stay healthy. And then Golden State, I'm not writing off completely yet. But I still feel like Denver, as we're currently constructed right now, are better than all those teams. And Bruce Brown was saying yesterday, covered in champagne. Again, how he's going to stay and return. But the most the Nuggets can pay Bruce is $7.1 million. And I mean, man, if I were his financial advisor, which I'd love to be Bruce, I would say no. And I love the Nuggets, but it's a small window these guys can capitalize on making money off of their bodies and their sport. And Bruce is probably a $14 million a year player in today's NBA economy. So he'd be cutting himself in half if he came back. Even without that, I like Christian Brown's possibility to come in and kind of play a little bit more of that role too.
Speaking of the Lakers, is there something rooted deeper in that rivalry? Because we've heard Michael Malone talk about the Lakers. They're still talking about him even at the championship parade. And LeBron had an Instagram post. To many people saying a response back yesterday. Was it just simply, ESPN's coverage of him? Did the Lakers disrespect him in some way? Like, what's the cause of that whole thing?
I mean, the ESPN stuff for sure, but it's the Lakers. So, bleep
Yeah.
the Lakers. You know what I'm saying? It's every Western Conference final until this one, the Nuggets had lost to the Lakers. And it's gotten better over the last couple of years, but Ball Arena, formerly Pepsi Center Health, formerly McNichols, when that LA team came with their stupid yellow shirts, they took over our city, their chants, their let's go LA, all the stuff that they would scream. It's just annoying. And you know what? It's almost a sign of respect to them. Lakers fans, I think, are just too dumb to realize that we're finally got over the mountaintop that is the Los Angeles Lakers. And you bet your ass we're going to let you hear about it. You
Was
let
that a
us hear about it for 20 years.
is that a bigger deal than winning the finals?
No, because it's the finals. You get a ring, you get a parade, you get to hold the trophy and all that good stuff. But I'll tell you, it's something that we won't forget that was a part of it on the way to the final, not only beating, but sweeping the Lakers.
Yeah.
They only lost 4 games, all playoffs. The Nuggets. Only the 2017 Warriors lost fewer games in the playoffs when they went 16-1. But the Nuggets, though, they pretty much going to look the same as they were last year. Or are they going to look the same next year as they did this year? I mean, I can't imagine many people leaving. A lot of them are under contract, especially the bigger names like Jokic, Murray, Porter Jr., Gordon, Caldwell Pope, Christian Braun. They're all under contract next year. They are well over the salary cap, though. I think it's I don't know the exact number off the top of my head, but they're well over the salary cap. So is there any chance of them even bringing on somebody else to kind of make like a big three with Jokic and Murray, or is that just completely out of the question?
I mean, I think they got it with AG or a combo. It's like a 2.5, but if you get 2 half bodies, that makes one
Mhm.
whole, right? So you kind of got the big three via Nikola, Jamal, Aaron, and then if Michael Porter Jr. can continue to develop a little bit. Bruce Brown, the one I was just talking about, that's the big question mark. Jeff Green's also an unrestricted free agent. I see Jeff coming back on like a vet minimum type of deal. But something else I think is going to happen here is I really believe Denver's in this window here to win 2 or 3 of these things in the next 6, 7 seasons. before all these guys decide to retire and, stop playing basketball for a living. So what I would see happen is more guys like Jeff Green, more guys like a Bruce Brown who come here on a prove it deal and let me go try to be my best and go get my bag after we make a deep run into the playoffs and maybe even win a world freaking championship. So I think their roster is going to be a little different. Christian Brown, who you mentioned, is a dude that can play a lot more than he did this year. He's got to develop a little bit more offensively. I think that comes with just simple confidence because the dude's a hooper. And there's another guy on the roster who you didn't see, and he's going to play Summer League this year. But Colin Gillespie, he's small, he's undersized, but the dude's basketball IQ is off the charts. As spot duty as a backup point guard, I wouldn't mind at all seeing a little bit more Colin Gillespie. So Bruce Brown's the one that I think's gone, just because, like I said, you got to get paid, man. Go get paid. It's what we all do this for, since we don't have chances of winning championships. But go get paid and let Christian take a bigger role. See if Colin can translate to the NBA level and go chase an old veteran or a mid-range veteran guy that wants to come and have a chance to win, prove it, and then go get his money.
Yeah, I think the expectations, like you said, is that the Nuggets do win another championship, and then the next two more or so in the next 5 years, 6 years, 7 years. But let's talk about the 2021 and 2022 seasons. We all saw how big Murray was both this year and in 2020 in the bubble. If he didn't get hurt, if he didn't tear his ACL, do you think Nuggets might have had a chance to win the last 2 years? And how big of that chances do you think how big of a window do you think they missed these last 2 years with Murray out with his torn ACL?
That's a good question. Man, because it's just so much of the ride and the maturity that has come with even him getting injured and how he figured out how to become who he is. Him being out, Nikola having to evolve, not just as a guy that does it on the floor, but how he changed his body and his approach to everything. And you've seen him all this year start to take the control of the timeouts and draw up plays. Started to show a little bit of that while Murray was out. So, man, that is a really good question. I think they would have made their run. Like, we would have probably gotten a couple of more conference finals in line, maybe at least one. But I honestly don't think they would have won a championship before. I just think everything, the timing of it, Tim Conley leaving. I don't know how much of that had to do with Jamal. Again, Tim got a giant paycheck. But what Calvin Booth did, bringing KCP, I was never a big Will Barton guy. I thought he was way worse for the roster than he was good for the roster. And you get that out of the locker room and on the roster, off the roster, you bring in KCP. And then the wherewithal of a guy like Calvin Booth to even trade Bones, because Bones was becoming a big issue. So it's a really good question, and I get where your thought is, and they certainly would have made a couple of runs. But no, I don't think they would have won a championship. This is the right time. This is the right path.
You talk about how Jokic kind of had to evolve a little bit even more with Murray being out. Let's just talk about Jokic more. I know you probably have talked about him quite enough on your shows and just with other people around the city, both you and the national media. But he kind of was a big man born out of the 3-point revolution, right? I mean, it's basically like if the Warriors' offensive scheme and Tim Duncan had a baby, right? Like, he really is amazing. Like, he's just the way he can pass the ball, the way he can kind of play as like a off the ball, like he can play off the ball so well, but he can also, facilitate passing and facilitate offenses so well too. So let's just kind of talk about him just being just a different big man that the NBA really has never really seen before.
It's exactly that. And look, I can talk about the guy all day. I freaking love the man. I call him a Serbian basketball god on my show. Look, what he's done for the game. And I know you guys love basketball. I'm from Indiana. Basketball is my religion, It is to watch him play the way he plays. And he said something 3 weeks ago that stuck with me for a while, and I hope it sticks with me forever. He said the open teammate wins games. Is that not the simplest explanation of basketball? The open teammate wins games. And he's willing to be the guy that passes, be the guy that rebounds, be the guy that is the open teammate, be the guy that sits on the bench in foul trouble and waves his towel, cheering his guys on, if that's the case that presents itself. He's just a pure form of beautiful basketball is the best way that I can say it. And everything that he does is genuine. All the stuff, the parade stuff. The guy literally wants to hoop, go home, read his daughter a book, take a lap in the pool, and call it a day. And I don't know if you can ask for much more out of that by a guy that is he is already the best Denver Nugget of all time. I don't know how you guys feel about it, but I'm willing to have a debate on whether or not he's the best European player of all time because I think he does more than what Dirk Nowitzki did. I think he's going to continue to do more than what Giannis Antetokounmpo can do because Giannis's game is predicated on his body and his ability and his athleticism. Nikola don't have that stuff. He's got more than us three do, but he doesn't have that stuff that makes him the great basketball player the way Giannis does. So I think he's already the best European basketball player. I think a couple of more titles and some MVPs is going to help my case in that argument. So I could talk about the guy all day. Athletes are not role models, right? Charles Barkley said it all those years ago. Caveat, there's a little asterisk next to that. Nikola Jokic is a role model.
Yeah, I was just going to say, what's the next step for him? Basically, just continue his role as one of the greatest players of all time. I already think he's probably a top 20 player of all time. Is there anything else in his game that they could actually improve on? Or is this the final product and now it's just about, let's see what his place is all time?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's always something you can get better at. I know he shot lights out from three during the postseason, but he struggled a little bit during the season. And struggle's probably the wrong term. He just didn't do it a lot.
Right.
And I think he can do a little bit more of that because he does have the touch. He does have the ability. And I think that's something that he'll work on. I honestly think what his next step is, outside of his itself, is kind of developing that basketball chemistry with guys like MPJ a little bit more because that's something I've talked about a ton. Jamal, Joker, dribble handoff, high pick and roll. It's a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
Why can't Michael do that? Michael's a basketball player. He can have the basketball in his hands for those same sort of situations, which would allow Michael Malone to stagger more, which allows you to kind of play with your bench and depth and not have to chase a secondary or third, fourth kind of star player that you talk about in today's NBA because the roster's right there for it. So that's my evolution. Get that same sort of basketball chemistry with other guys on the team so that it doesn't have to be just two dudes scoring 66% of your points.
Yeah.
Well, Josh, this has been really good. This has been really great. We loved having you on. Really appreciate your time. I want to ask you one more question before we head out, though. Steph Curry pretty much redesigned the game, 5, 6, 7 years ago when he came into the game, especially the point guard position, though, right? Is Jokic redesigning the game again, and especially at the center position? I mean, bigs now are expected to be able to play in a high-paced environment and play in space, and that's something that they haven't really had to do in the past. But Jokic is showing that when you do that and you can be a prolific passer, it's going to lead to championships and great things. So is he redefining the game? And most importantly, is he redefining the center position?
I think he is. I think it's a little bit different with Steph, though, because, Steph's the same height as me, right? Well, he's got a couple of inches on me, but you know what I mean? It's not like this anomaly of a human being. If you stand next to Nikola Jokic and you're like, oh, yeah, he's a professional something just because of stature. So I think that it will swing back that way, but it's going to take a little bit more time. I think teams are going to look at just bigger bodies to try to slow him down, just physicality, right? Banging bodies underneath the basket. But he's a generational kind of guy, a 7-footer that hit that growth spurt after he had already developed his young, early childhood basketball player as a guard. That's why he's able to do these type of things. He played guard most of his life. So it's also a different time, right? He grew up in Sombor, so I don't know anything about that, but I know parents here, they specialize on the one thing. They focus on the one thing. They hammer it home. And I don't know how tired kids quickly get of that kind of thing. So I think that the center will come back, like the position center will come back. I don't know that there's another Nikola Jokic out there.
I just think NBA is getting more and more away from actual position players, actual positions, and more just kind of free open space type of play. And I think that's why Jokic is doing so well in that kind of scheme right now, because he just plays so well in space and is, like I said, we've all been saying, is just such a good facilitator overall and just, offensively. So, well, Josh, this has been awesome. We'll definitely have to do this again sometime. We really appreciate your time and giving us your expertise. So
appreciate you guys having me.
Yeah.
Absolutely, man. Come back anytime.
For sure.
Josh Josh Dover, Altitude Sports 92.5 FM. We'll do this again, and we really appreciate your time, okay?
Cool. Thanks, guys.
All right. Take care, man. Okay, we'll finish up the show with some off the map of the week. Zach, who's your off the map of the week?
My off the map is Michael Jordan, and I don't mean off the map as far as nobody's paying attention to him, but Michael Jordan's now finishing the sale of the Charlotte Hornets. But the thing that surprises me, here's the stats: never won a playoff series, never finished higher than 6th in the Eastern Conference, 5th worst winning percentage in the NBA over Michael Jordan's ownership in 13 years. Yet he will still make over $2 billion on the sale of this franchise, which is more than he's made from Nike in 40 years. I can't believe he didn't make more than $2 billion, considering all the commercials, considering all the wings that he has in the Nike facility, the fact that he basically is the athlete that we associate with Nike more than anybody else, the fact that he's making more money selling a bad franchise than 40 years of impeccable marketing from Nike. That's the thing that surprised me.
I'm going to go with buying soccer teams as my off the map of the week. Ricky Fowler, not only flexing his muscles on the golf course this week, came out in a report that he himself, Justin Thompson, and Jordan Spieth are actually looking into buying Leeds United over in England. No longer in the Premier League, Leeds United after this year. They got relegated to the English Football League Championships, often just referred to as the Championships in London. It's the tier just below the Premier League. Leeds, of course, was in the Premier League last year, but like I said, based on their record and their points value, they got relegated after this last season. Leeds looking for a new director as well as a new coach after this news of relegation. I love Leeds United. They got Brendan Aronson from former player for the Philadelphia Union, and also he's on the American, U.S. national team as well. Mm-hmm. Really good forward, one of my favorite players. So I like Leeds United, and I like this news, and I really hope that this kind of like habit or trend of people buying soccer teams, over like these American athletes buying these European soccer teams, I really hope it continues. How about long haul of the week, Zach? Who's your long haul of the week?
Long haul of the week. A little surprising here. I found that Aaron Rodgers reportedly refused to trade to the Patriots this offseason. Instead, chose to go to the Jets, which I don't blame him for, because you look at the Patriots wide receiver room right now, it's pitiful. It's probably one of the bottom 5 receiver rooms in the NFL. I don't even know who their number one option is. But he also didn't want to go there because I don't think he wanted to play under the shadow of Tom Brady. Not everything Aaron Rodgers does in his time, he didn't want to be compared to Brady. Like, oh, Tom Brady threw 50 touchdown passes. Tom Brady won 7 Super Bowls. That's impossible to live up to. He goes to New York. They haven't won a Super Bowl in 54 years. And so if they have any sort of success, I mean, the Jets aren't exactly one of the most historic franchises in the history of the NFL from a winning perspective. He goes there and wins a couple playoff games, or, if he wins a Super Bowl, he's a legend in New York forever. So I completely understand why Aaron Rodgers rejected a trade offer from the Patriots, because, since Brady's left, it's been one of the most bland organizations in the NFL, and the Jets have much more upside. They've got a better running back room, a better receiver core, and the defenses are pretty comparable right now. So the long haul is Aaron Rodgers' smart business move going to the Jets. Not something you say every day.
Yeah, just kind of off tangent a little bit. I think that's most likely where Hopkins is going next year. DeAndre Hopkins is the Patriots. I think he went and trained or, had a practice with them this last week. And I know they're actually continuing the negotiation process going into this weekend. So reports coming out, I think that's where the most likely landing spot for DeAndre Hopkins is going to be, is the Patriots. But no, I agree. Don't want to be in the footsteps of Tom Brady. And I think he made a good decision going to the Jets. My long haul of the week, Maria Millis. Zion Williams' girlfriend, lashing out on Twitter after the news of the 22-year-old forward having a kid with another woman. I think they named Akima. Just been hilarious. The tweets have been hilarious from fans. The tweets from Maria, though, have not been hilarious. She's been going way too far. For someone that's saying that she's over him, definitely is not over him. Just the things that she's been saying, lashing out at him, fat shaming him, saying that he would be nothing without her, just got a little bit too far. She needs to kind of throw in the towel right now, realize things are over, and just kind of move on from the whole situation. But overall, tweets have been amazing. Tweets have been hilarious. I don't want to see those tweets stop, but I do want to see Maria's treats stop.
Well, they
Good show.
wanted him to lose weight, and he's doing it.
Yeah. Well, he lost weight all because of her. Apparently,
He sure did.
She was the motivation for him to lose weight, nothing else.
Get that cardio going.
Yeah. Well, man, good show. Let's finish up with our predictions of the week. What's your predictions going into this next sports week?
Ooh, yeah.
I
There's
know.
not a ton going on right now. Like I mentioned earlier, I guess my predictions that
It's hard
Xander
now.
Schauffele's going to win the U.S. Open, but outside of that, yeah, I'm trying to think of. I guess maybe there'll be an NBA coach fired or a couple NBA coaches fired in the next week or so. I guess that'll be my prediction outside of the U.S. Open. But yeah. We're kind of scrapping right now. We're scraping at the bottom of the barrel for predictions.
Yeah, we're that time of the season for sure. Dog days of summer, golf, baseball, pretty much the only things going on right now. But
Yeah.
I'll go to baseball and kind of following up what we talked about earlier in the show with the A's. My prediction is that the A's will be well above 500 for the month of June. As we record this Friday afternoon, the A's are 7 for 13 in the month of June. They over the last 13 games, they won 2 of the 3 games against the Pirates, swept the Brewers, and split a series against the best team in the MLB, the Rays.
Yeah.
So watch out. A's might be one of the best teams in June, despite all the news going on. A's might be one of the best teams. Yeah. I think if they win tonight and the Kansas City loses, they also will not be the worst team in the MLB anymore either. They'll go to the Kansas City Royals. So
That's right.
We'll see. A's. A lot of news for the A's going on. It's weird that the A's are one of the most talked about teams in baseball right now, good or bad, and that's just you don't really hear that often, especially in the last couple of years. All right, good show. We'll do this all again next week, and until then, keep on traveling.